welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm TyJon Charlie. I'm alive. I know it's been a long time since I've done one of these. Been a couple weeks. Last time I had Ryan Wolf on, and I was going to talk about some shows, but that just kind of came into fruition. So I have a lot to catch up on. I have pretty much the whole month of June up to this far, which, you know, it's the 25th or something. I don't even know, something like that. It's been a whirlwind of madness. But I think I'm even technically back in the last weekend of May for shows that I've talked about. But so I'll get into it. It might be a little bit of a longer one. So if you're not into the solo pods where I just talk about shows, this might not be the one for you. But I can actually talk. That's been part of it too, is I've been sick for pretty much since this first weekend I'm going to talk about in the last weekend of May. Pretty sure I ended up having 3 shows on that Sunday, which was Memorial Day weekend, and you know, I was just in contact with a lot of people, so I think that probably is what started it. And then it's just like I haven't really given my chance a good amount to heal, good amount of time to heal. So still congested, but I didn't sound like a complete frog when I woke up, and this is the second day that it's been less crazy on that front. So somehow my voice has been okay to do shows, which I don't really understand, but very thankful for that it wasn't that type of sickness where I can't like talk at all, because that would make this month of June just completely crazy. But anyway, so going back, it'd be Friday, May 26th. I was at Cruisin's in Peoria on War Memorial Drive. It was the first time I'd played there this year, I think, and it was a slow start. It was kind of a weird start, but you know, it usually is. They had the back doors open, which was a nice day, so I kind of understand that. But of course, there was music playing on the inside, and I would be set up outside right next to those doors. So for me, I find that very distracting, and I feel like it doesn't really get the best of either worlds, because the people indoor hear my music and it kind of drowns out the indoor music, and the outdoor people hear mostly my music, but you know, you get a little bit of undertone of wrong key, wrong rhythm, and it just drives me nuts. But anyway, so I decided when I got there, because they have a secondary place to set up in case it rains, so I went ahead and did that, which I was really happy that I made that choice later, because it was just, you know, something that I didn't have to think about, because I was far enough away from the music that it wasn't gonna bug me. So I was happy about that. Kind of a, like I said, slow start, but there were a few people that were into it halfway, and by the end there was a few ladies up and dancing. I got to, I think, my shout cover. I did a lot of covers that night. I mean, it was mainly a cover show, but I threw in some originals here and there, tried to, you know, grab some people for that. But by the end of it, I had a good time though. It was a lot of fun. And then that Saturday I played at the Roundabout, at the Circle in Uptown Normal. I may have tried to do too much for this show. I don't really know. It was not my best. It wasn't my worst. It's okay. I think people enjoyed it generally, but I just have never really felt like I've done a great show there. And that's always very frustrating, since it's like my hometown. And Morgan, the person who books it and books me a few other things, was there, and you know, I don't think she's ever really seen me do a decent job, so I was really hoping to play a little bit better. But part of the reason I didn't was probably because I was thinking that, which is kind of a dumb dichotomy there, where if I want to do really good, I usually don't, and if I'm pretty indifferent, like, oh, it's just another show, I usually do pretty good, in my opinion. And my part of that might just be the expectation, but I definitely did too much of a setup, and one of my JBLs just wasn't even working right, and so that was a little bit annoying. For some reason my guitar was only coming out of one of them, and I shouldn't even have set it up that way. I do so many setups that I kind of forget what for the bigger ones. It's been a while, so I'd forgotten what my last one that I liked the most was, and so I set up both JBLs. The second one was just like an extension speaker, essentially. And I did my organ pedal and everything else, and I don't know. It was okay. I mean, again, not the worst show ever, but basing it on my, 100%, that's what I'm going for, 100%. It was probably not there. But, I was still happy to do it. It was fun. There were moments that I was having a really good time, and I got to talk to some people that were excited about it. So I mean, that always helps my mentality, and I felt good. And I was done early, 6 to 7:30 on that show, which was good because that prepared me for the next day, which was 2 shows. I had Jamie's Outpost for the afternoon, and then I had I thought it was a country club, but in Cornell, but it was really just this guy's property that they kind of treat like a country club, I guess. They call it the country club, but anyway, so I played the first one, and I remembered, I should just use my little QRS extension speaker, and that just sounded so much better. It was simpler. It was a lot of things. So it was a good call, and it was a long set, and I felt decent right out of the gates, and it only got better throughout the day. And by the end of it, I was like feeling like I was killing it. I've been posting a lot of videos from that show because I actually filmed the whole thing, and I think it kind of sounded pretty good. So I think I just did 2 long sets, honestly. Or I took maybe a break on the first 2 hours, and then I did a long last set. So I was just like not wanting to get off stage, and I had a show after that. So I was like, I shouldn't do that. It was against better judgment. I should have taken more breaks and stuff. But the weird thing that happened was that a guy was there that had seen me play, and his girlfriend, from the Pontiac area, Deb is her name, Debbie, I believe, and she was she says nice things, kind of into the music I play when they happen to see me. So it was her birthday, and the guy, was her boyfriend, was like, hey, can you come, would you be interested in coming and playing at her house? She lives out in the country by Flanagan. It's this really big house, there's a pond, nice property and everything. And I was like, I guess. I might be able to swing it, but I got another show already today. And he was like, well, here's my number. And I was like, okay, it probably won't work out. A lot of things like that don't really, work out or happen after. It's just like an idea somebody has. But I ended up told him if the timing didn't bug him, it being kind of late, probably wouldn't get there till around 10 or so to play for an hour maybe or something like that, and he was into it. So I gave him it gave him something to kind of talk about. I got a buddy coming, he kept saying, I guess is what he was telling him. And he told everybody else like who I was, and that I was a musician and stuff, and that she knew me. And he told her that it was just a friend. And I think all of the people that were at the party he was telling this to, are like, no, this guy isn't gonna show up or anything. So, but anyway, so fast forward to the second show, was just kind of this outdoor little event. There's more of a family reunion type feel, I guess. And got it set up pretty quick there, played a pretty solid set. I don't think it was as good as the Jamie's Outpost one necessarily. I don't know, I just felt a little more nervous for some reason, but I had a good time. I was already warmed up, and even my worst at that point was still pretty good because I was loose and in the moment. And I played a couple hours there. So I played 4-hour set at Jamie's, and then 2 hours, no break there. And then I hightailed to Flanagan. I probably got there around 10:30. And then I played another, I ended up and did a completely acoustic set, so that was kind of helpful. Didn't have to set up and tear down everything. But So that was more of a selling point for me, I think, ultimately, for getting out there to do it. But really nice place, really nice property, and once she realized who I was, I think she was pretty excited. And I did some originals, but a lot of covers that I thought they would know, and they did. And it was a long day, very long day. 3 shows in a day. I played for a couple hours there, so I ended up playing for about 8 hours that day, maybe 7 with breaks or something. But it was a lot of playing. But I felt like a real troubadour. I felt like, oh, I'm doing this. This is the adventurous lifestyle. It felt really, really nice. And I felt like I sounded good at all those last shows. So that on top of it was, an extra bonus. So then we're getting into the first week of June. So pretty much going forward, I've had at least 3 shows per week, and one of them got canceled due to the rain. But the first one was in Mount Olive at a place called Mel's Place, and never been there before. I ended up setting up outside. It was pretty hot, but they had like a covered, it's almost like a garage, and wasn't super busy, but sounded good, felt good. People were into it that were there, singing along. I live streamed some of that one, I think, and got some okay videos from that. And it was just like a win all around. It wasn't anything. I was like, so nervous because that was the first week that my voice was getting like a little rough. So I was like, uh-oh, like, that first one was the toughest, because after I got through that first weekend, I think I had a little more faith in myself as far as being able to pull them off, even with a rough voice. But I drank my throat coat tea and honey, and I think there's always, like, if that happens, you get this like feeling of relief when you're playing, because you can kind of tell, oh, my voice is kind of working, and then it just becomes all just fun and games, kind of, because it's like anything that happens from that point on is just a bonus. You're just excited to be there and it to be working. And then the next day I was at this Champaign show. It was like through the city of Champaign at Hessel Park, and it was like this big stage, really nice setup, and it was pretty legit. And I was more congested that day, but big setups, it was kind of similar to the roundabout, and there wasn't a roundabout, but I mean, it was a lot of people kind of just chilling in the park, and I was on this giant stage, but I had to provide all my own sound, so I kind of winged it. And I think this one went better than the roundabout show, but still a little sloppy, and my voice wasn't all the way there. But I felt pretty good. I was extra nervous just to be, I think, on that big stage ultimately, and it just to all be on me. A lot, I just when you're playing like a bigger stage like that, it would be nice to have some help with the sound and stuff. But anyway, looked really professional from afar, but behind the curtain, it was just like cables everywhere and shitty speakers. But made it work, got through it, got good feedback. Like I said, wasn't my best, but. And then the Sunday show, I was in Chillicothe at the Moon Tower Bar, and first time in Chillicothe. It was a 4-hour set that day, so it was 3, 2, and 4 for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that first weekend, a little extra sense of like worried about my voice. I got there, it worked out fine. I tried using my in-ears for the first time in a really long time on that show, and I was just kind of playing around with them. I was like, this will be a good show to because I was indoor, which thankfully, because it's very hot outside, and it was right on the Illinois River, I believe. It's the one by Peoria, if I'm thinking right. But anyway, so it kind of would have been cool to be outside, to be next to that, but I was indoors, so it was air conditioned, and it was kind of a smaller room, so I didn't really need a lot of sound. And I knew that if my in-ears weren't working right, I could just use the JBL, no monitors, and probably be fine. So I messed around with that, kind of got a little more comfortable with them. It's been so long since I've used them. I just feel like my ears are just been taking such a beating lately. So it's been in my head like I need to start. A lot of those Kilkenny shows just murder my ears. And they're, playing 3 to 5 shows every week, you kind of just loud, if you're loud, it just is a little rough on the ears. So it's like I need to start taking better care, because I kind of just constant tinnitus, and you get headaches sometimes after shows just for it being so loud. But the in-ears are a whole new can of worms. It's like, you can't connect with the people there as much, which lately I've been doing just one in and one out, so a little bit more connected. Plus I can kind of hear what's going on, but because I think that's the problem a lot of the time with the in-ears, is that you can't hear what it actually sounds like. You only hear your mix and your monitor and your in-ear monitors, and you just are hoping for the best. And if you don't have a guy out front, it makes it kind of tough to. And if your in-ear vocal is up a little bit more than maybe it is on the main, and it's like in your eardrum, it's like super loud. So maybe you sing a little quieter when you have the in-ears in, and then through the PA, because you're singing in your ears, it sounds loud enough and good, and you're singing in key, and it's great. And then you get somebody that walks up to you and is like, we can't hear your vocals, or something to that extent. So I ended up doing a lot of the show with just one in, just kind of messing around with it. And it's been so long, I have a different gear than I used to the last time I was using them, so it's all an experiment. And I feel like I just kind of figured it out maybe this last weekend, and then by the end of the weekend I wasn't using them. But anyway, that's a long time away, so we'll get there eventually. But the show went decent. I felt like my voice wasn't super strong, and I was just kind of beat from all the other shows and being a little sick. And then I had a show that Wednesday, so not few days after that, Sunday, at the Lunchtime Concert Series in Bloomington, and it was at Tipton Park, I believe. I think it's Tipton. I can never keep Withers. It was Withers Park, and it was 11 to 1:30, and I had my in-ears all set up, and I was like, I'm not even going to use them, because it was like the Champagne thing. It was big stage, but it allowed me to do the sound. Kind of tinier park in general, across from the castle, that little park by the bank. But I got there pretty early. It's a few blocks from my house, so it was easy enough to get there on time and take my time setting up. And I did it the same way that I did at the Champagne show, and I feel like it sounded pretty good. I think I took a few mental notes at the Champagne one to kind of think about for this one, and that definitely was helpful. And yeah, it just sounded pretty solid. I mean, again, my voice wasn't 100%, but I was singing the notes, and I wasn't messing with the in-ears. I didn't have any monitors besides my JBL, and then I had a extension speaker that was like a little bit behind me, my QSC. That was one of the notes, put it a little bit behind me so I could hear it if I turned my head this way. And yeah, it must have did the trick, because it felt pretty good. I mean, obviously I always want it to be my best, but it wasn't quite there, but it wasn't bad. So then Friday, this weekend was a rough one. Looking at it, I was at Bellevue, Iowa for Lock 12 music, and 3-hour drive. And I think my thinking initially when I booked it, because Saturday night I was at Kilkenny's in Davenport, was I would just stay either in somewhere near Lock 12 or somewhere near Davenport, and not have to get up super early. But for some reason, at some point, I thought it was a good idea to book this farmer's market in Decatur on Saturday and morning. So I played at Bellevue, Iowa, got back at 5 a.m. and then had to get up at, I think, 8 to get to the place by 9 to play by 10 to 12. And then I drove back to Bloomington, and then I drove to Davenport, Iowa, which I didn't get back till 4 in the morning. And then I was supposed to play a show at Whiskey Bill's Saloon on Sunday. That one did get canceled due to the rain. But, so I mean, I don't know. It was kind of like it was a win-lose either way, because it was like if the show went on and it wasn't, the weather was good, I would have made some extra money, and that's always, I need it, so that would have been great. And I would be very tired. or the alternative is, I'd get some extra sleep but be a little more broke. So, it got canceled, so it wasn't the end of the world. But either way, there was some positive to kind of look at. But going back to the show at Lock 12, it was not very busy. It was pretty slow. I had written down 9:30 to 1:30, and they had 9 to 1, which that kind of upset me a little bit that I was incorrect on that. I don't know why I thought that. But I did my in-ears that night, and they set their stage up in a different spot, which was pretty cool. I was just feeling off that night. Probably just the long drive. Sometimes those 3-hour drives, they just don't end well. And it's a fun drive, though. I always say that when I play over there. It's right up the Mississippi, and you're like right by the water for a good, after you get kind of past that Davenport area, you get to cruise on up the Mississippi, and it can be a lot of fun on that, just visually, compared to the normal interstate driving that I'm normally doing. But yeah, it was a 4-hour set. I kind of remember I was just kind of fucking around a little bit on some stuff. Like, there wasn't very many people there, so I was playing a lot of B-side songs. But I listened back, and I just wasn't super... I think it was easier with the in-ears. I think I always have trouble hearing myself there. But usually the problem is the crowd's so loud and they're like right up on you. But now the stage is in a different spot, and again, there wasn't a huge crowd. So between those two things, I probably could have just used my monitor and been fine. But tried to be more ear conscious, so I did the in-ears, and it just didn't feel right all night. I don't know. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And then, I was exhausted for the farmer's market in Decatur, but it was nice. It was a nice day out, and pretty simple setup I did, and it wasn't super busy. It's right in the middle of town. I thought maybe it would be a little busier, but it was. I found out it was their second one, so I wasn't really too surprised, I guess, by the turnout. But it was a nice day for sure. But I was tired, and then the Davenport show was pretty fun, but I think part of that was just the relief that I'd made it. Of course, in my head, I still had the Sunday show, so I wasn't like all the way relieved, but I was like, the hard part of this weekend is over, even though the next day will be hard, but it won't be as hard. And that ended up and didn't even happen. So I brought my in-ears that night, and I think that was the night I started kind of figuring out how to use them better. I was just doing the one in and listening to the main. I think really I just had my vocals coming through it, and it sounded pretty good. I think I did a pretty light setup, but just kind of getting used to those things again. And it was a busier night than it had been the last time I played there, and it seemed like people were into it. Not the whole time, but it never is like that there. So my expectation a lot of times isn't super high for that show being amazing, but when it's a little bit better, and it was, since I used my in-ears, I wasn't as conscious of the music they were playing in the other room or outside or wherever they end up and do it. It wasn't bugging me as much. But then I did the Tap in West Lafayette the Friday after that. So that would be my next show. That one was a weird one. I played there before, and well, 2 times. Played there 2 times. And the first time went pretty good. The person who was helping with sound was really nice, and kind of knew what she was doing, and that was always helpful. They have such a weird setup there where you're playing above the back bar, and you're like 10 feet up, and I don't know, it's just kind of a weird setup. But and then the second time I played there, it was like the week of graduation, was the weekend before or something, so there's like 0 people there, and the person who was there to do sound the first time wasn't there. So there's somebody else doing it. They couldn't figure out how to turn the main music off, and I started a little late because they were trying to figure it out, and then I was just like, whatever, I'll just play through it. I think eventually they did kind of get it off, but it was such a slow night. They even let me leave a half hour early, I think, because by the end I was playing for the staff. But the last time I played there, which is the one that I'm talking about on the 16th, the person that was doing sound the first time was there, and she was like, I put my 2 weeks in. Like, she didn't seem very happy, I guess is the point I'm trying to. And then she was nice to me, nothing negative towards me, but she made a comment about how a lot of because even their sound system is weird. So they have like that high up stage, and then you're plugging into this snake that's like this Behringer, can't remember, some Behringer snake thing that you control with an iPad. It's like X15 or something like that, and which, you know, I'm not super good at using the digital boards. I'm more of a analog guy when it comes to mixing. And that's just because that's what I grew up using. I mean, I can usually figure out the digital stuff if it's pretty simple. And I think a lot of times the people who do sound or have that kind of setup or try to make it easy for somebody else to use in case, you know, they don't really know what they're doing. So that being said, I was one of those people. But anyway, she was saying like a lot of the inputs on the snake didn't work right. And then I used my in-ears for this, which I think was kind of the best thing I could have done for this show. And I just played acoustic because it's kind of pretty laid back, and you can't even see my foot drums. I've done foot drums there a couple times, but it's just really unnecessary. I think I've resolved to. And so after I got my sound and my in-ears sounded good, I took one out and I was listening. I went down and talked to her. I was like, sounds pretty high end. Like there's a lot of high end coming from your speakers. Like, I don't know if you want to maybe push the lows. And she was like, well, pretty much all the speakers are blown, so that's why. And the monitor they had upstairs wasn't working right. And it's just like a lot of stuff like that. And so I mean, that situation isn't the most ideal to be kind of walking into. And I don't know, it was just kind of uncomfortable. But then, you know, I got playing and I was using my in-ears and I felt pretty good. Voice made it through just fine. And then the next day I was at Jack's on Adams in Peoria, and that was the first time I'd ever played there. And it was a cool setup. I do, however, wish that I would have just used my own stuff, but it was a 3-hour set. Both sets that weekend were 3-hour sets, and I don't know. It just like the one of the selling points, it was, you know, you don't have to bring all your gear. But for me, that's still a lot of gear that I have to bring because I'm doing the one-man band. And like, part of me was thinking, oh, I'll just play acoustic because they probably won't care or know the difference. And when I got there, I just couldn't convince myself to be that lazy, even though I really, really wanted to. And so I started and then a couple of the people that worked there were making comments about how, you know, I could hear them talking to other people saying, you know, it's a one-man band, so it was clearly the right choice. But with the pay and everything, I was just like, maybe I'll just do acoustic. But I was glad I ended up. But what I'm getting to is that was a lot of extra gear on top of their PA. So they had like a mixer, analog mixer, and a couple speakers. And I didn't use the monitor. I just used my in-ears, and that, I think, was a mistake because I wasn't really comfortable with their system, and I was trying to like jimmy rig to work with my in-ears. And the first set I think went okay, and then I was like, I think I was doing one in, one out, but my voice was decent. And then I got to that second set, and like a few more people got there, and I was doing the in-ears. I decided to put both in. I was like, I'm gonna try that out. And my voice kind of went out on me for a while, and it was not a fun set. Like, played a lot of guitar, you know, kind of make up for it, and it wasn't like, there were just spots where it just like wasn't quite there. And which, you know, happens, but it was just uncomfortable. You know, it's like, it's not cooperating. And so I took another break, and then I ended up playing again for my last set, and I was like, I'll just take the in-ears out. And it was easier to sing. it was just weird how the speakers were behind me but really high up, and that's what I was hearing without the in-ears. And I don't know what their system's EQ really natural setting is, and I wasn't gonna mess with that because I assumed it was EQ'd to the room, but it didn't sound normal. And because I play with my own gear so much, I have an idea of what it should sound like when I use that, and it was just completely different. And I wasn't quite. I think part of it was I did in the second set. I did change the setup for the in-ears too. I got because the first set I just had my vocals, and then I added some like the overall main mix in them. And my in-ears, I don't know if they're broken, but it's like my left ear, when I use the monitor in, is only mono in my left ear, even if it's set at stereo. I don't know if I need a stereo cable or what I used to do to make it not do that, but anyway, it's just old stuff probably. That's probably the bottom line of it. And then I ended up playing the last set. Went a little better than the last set, but still not quite there. And I was feeling kind of down about that middle set because there was actually a few people there. And again, none of them were really upset. They even said nice things, but I was like, I wish I could have played better for that one. And it all turned out fine. They seemed happy about what I did and got some good food. And then the Sunday show was 12 to 3 at Door 4 Brewing. Kind of another airball on my part, I think, ultimately, because it was kind of hot when I got there, and it's this brunch show. And last time I played there for a brunch show, it wasn't winter time, but it was still kind of chillier. So they didn't have the doors open, the garage doors, and mostly indoor. And there was a lot of people there, and it was a really, really good time. So I was like thinking like, I want that to happen again. But as with most things, you can't just make that kind of thing happen. So picked indoor. I feel like it sounded really good. Was just doing the one in ear and my vocal and keeping it pretty quiet. And pretty much everybody sat outside, so it pretty much felt like I was playing for nobody for a long time. But I know that wasn't the case. I know people would come in once in a while and tell me how good I was doing and stuff, but half of me wanted to just take my one-man band setup with no PA and just go play in the like outdoor area. But because it's weird, because when you're set up playing indoor, you're like in this corner over here, and then there's like this some stuff here, and then the garage door is there, and then there's this bunch of tables and kind of beer garden area, so nobody can really see you when you're kind of tucked in a corner over here, in the outdoor area to the garage is like here. And so everybody that's over here, they can hear you, but they can't see you. The guy who booked it, who's a musician, also was there, and his wife, and I got them up to play a song, and that was very cool. Bob Besser, Nikki Besser, and they sounded great, and it was kind of cool to have a chiller day to talk to them a little bit more, because I don't really get a lot of chances to do that, and hear them play, and everything it was cool. They were both really good. Definitely. They have a bunch of kids, so they always are like, we don't get enough time to practice. And Bob is the guy who runs the open mic over there, but in books. But he's really nice. Robert Besser, Bob Besser, whatever he prefers. I don't know, but it's nothing really to write home about necessarily. But it was a good day, and it was the cap on the weekend, and I got home and I felt pretty good. And then I had picked up a show the next Thursday, which I kind of forgot about, in Danville, maybe a week or two prior. Oh, let me backtrack before I get there. I had recording on Monday at Eclipse for my newer song called Wings, and got a lot of mixing done, and my voice still I was supposed to record vocals, and my voice still just wasn't cooperating. It's like I can get the notes out and everything, but it just doesn't, like, even right now I just feel so congested, but it's just not doing it right. It's like a little off, you have to think a little extra hard. I was feeling okay that day. I ended up and did record like a bunch of vocal takes, and it's like they sound like the performance was good. The tone is a little different because of the way my voice is. So it's like I have a whole copy of it with the almost, kind of a rough completed version. You haven't really done any comps or anything yet, but and it sounds pretty good. Like no auto tune, no nothing really. And he used this cool tape mic that was, looked pretty legit, different mic than, but he had like this idea, because I know a lot of times we struggle with getting some of the high end out of my voice, and that's what he had said. So he was like, let's try this, and we did, and I thought it sounded really cool and different, and it's nice warm sound. So I mean, obviously still got a lot of mixing to do with that. I'm gonna do a bunch of backing vocals on that too, that I already kind of have planned out, but and some other little things. I re-recorded acoustic guitar. I had done 2 acoustic takes, or I probably done 4, and we picked 2 of them to use, but they were both just like the same guitar, so just kind of really dark. My thin-bodied Martin is what I used, and I tracked the acoustic at home, so I think I just didn't get a good, there wasn't enough high end, because this is like a huge big band song. This is probably the most production I've had in a song in a while. Even my Digital Soul song that I will talk about here soon that just got released, it's bigger than that. And I did a bunch of stuff on the iPad. Like I tracked a bunch of stuff, and I had some different instruments laid out and a lot of ideas. And then maybe like I had like drum kind of general idea, but I had Eric redo those, and they sound pretty incredible. It sounds great. It's just like I said, I'm not sure if I'm convinced if I should use the takes, because it was nice to go in the studio, and even though my voice was rough and I had come off a 3-day show weekend, and it was the Monday, and I was beaten and tired, and I went in there and I just felt like I had way more of a grasp on how to approach it. Because when I first started when anybody first starts in the studio, I mean, if you've never done it before, it's always so weird, and you get the sound in the headphones, you're not sure what should be where and what the levels should be. And I've been doing it long enough that I have input as the person recording. Usually I would just do it, when I first started, I would just do what anybody else told me to do, because I figured they knew best. But at this point, I have like a little bit of an approach to get kind of a best end result, and it just felt like the first take I did, like it felt really, really solid. And I went all the way through, and I was like, it's not probably the take, but it felt good enough that it almost could have been. And then I think I did two or three more full takes, and then I did a couple just spot kind of, just the verse here, just the chorus here, just the verse there. So, we have a lot of options for things if I don't like, I get kind of picky sometimes. Like, I don't like the way I said there. So it's like, oh, that is better. So I'll pick that one. Or, stupid things like that, where I get really in my head about just different, silly, small things. But, and, Eric's input over Eclipse is always hugely valuable, because he just has like a crazy knowledge about all that stuff and a really good ear. He played bass on it too, which was cool, because I had a bass part written out that I kind of just did digitally with the iPad, and it sounded fine, but wanted a real live bass on it, and he had done that the time before. But anyway, that song is coming together, and got doing the vocals and hearing the vocals on it got me really excited about it. And it's definitely a big band sound. I played some electric guitar, which was fun. I haven't had a song where I really like have lead parts in a very long time, unless it was somebody else, like Wolf songs. Maybe I'll come up with a lead part for some of his sometimes. But so like, actually sitting down writing a part to play, and one of them's pretty intense, and the other one I'm playing I played on a slide guitar, which I don't do very often. It's not me and Wolf were talking on the last podcast about how every track I'm featured on his newer album, I'm doing something I'm not super comfortable with. So the slide guitar, and this was the last time I've been out. I probably tracked it, 6 months, 8 months ago on the iPad. And we ended up keeping all, which I was surprised that Eric thought the quality was good enough to not have to retrack. I used my little Black Star, my Epiphone semi-hollow body, and yeah, it sounded pretty cool. But then, so what I was getting to is tracking acoustic guitars because I needed the kind of a higher sound. So I ended up bringing my Yamaha in, which is a very loud, bright guitar, and got just a full take of that. Got it mixed and everything, and then I did the vocals. And again, I have a semi-final product, but I'm gonna have to go back there probably twice. I'm gonna have to go do backing vocals once, and then I'm gonna probably do some mixing and mastering that day, and then another day of just complete last minute mix master stuff, and then just the final version. And I might end up and decide that I don't think my voice is the way I want it to sound. It's hard for me to be the judge, because again, it sounds good, it sounds pitch wise good, and it's the right melody and everything, but the tone is just like a little bit congested, or I don't know. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to EQ some of that out and it'll be fine, or maybe different's good. I don't know. Maybe it'll be kind of an interesting sound, but it's like once I do it, that's it, So it's so final that it's like maybe I should have the best version of my voice on there. But we'll see what happens with that. Again, excited about it, but we'll see. It should be a couple months. And this one, I will say, is my first 2 releases solo for the TyJon Charlie stuff on Spotify and everywhere else. It's been quite a bit different. I think this one more of a the first 2 are more of a departure from what I've been doing, like with the Unemployed Architects. This one kind of, I think, is a little bit of a flashback to that to an extent. Like it's not so different. It's different, but not, I'm playing all the parts except the bass and the drums. But it's closer, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to the Unemployed Architect stuff. But it just has a little bit different flavor, but it just sounds like this big, huge production. So I'm really excited about that. So then fast forward to the Thursday show. So Vermilion Beer Company in Danville. It was 5:30 to 7:30. Seemed like it was gonna rain. I got there later than I was hoping, with traffic and leaving late, and I've had a kind of string of that going on lately, so I'll get into that here. But still not feeling 100% with the voice at this point. Woke up very, very froggy that day and was pretty nervous about it, but held up fine. Did my in-ear, did fine that way. Did light setup. People were into it. It did seem like it was gonna rain, but never actually did. And again, the people that were there were enjoying it, and I got lots of compliments after, and it just felt pretty solid. Well, not my best, but pretty close. Definitely closer. And then, so we're finally to this last weekend, which was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And right now it's Monday. So the last, 5 shows then? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 4, sorry, bad at counting. So that one went fine. I played at Kilkenny's on the Friday. I felt like I sounded really good that day. I mean, it wasn't still the vocal thing, but it was, did the one in ear, and I feel like I took that Danville method that I'd done the night before, and did kind of a lighter setup than I had been. It was Friday. It was just a weird night in general. It's like people weren't really around until like almost 11, and then they were like, sometimes I'd get some applause, but it's kind of in my own little world with my headphones, and like I always say, I kind of have a different expectation for that show. And but I wasn't gonna get back till late. I got back at 4:30, I think, and then I checked my travel time for and I was gonna say the Kilkenny show. That was the first night that I released Digital Soul, or that release came out. So all day I was working on like some promo videos, sending it to people and trying to show people to get them to hear it, but then also to, that first week is so important on the Spotify to get your release a little bit higher on the algorithm. So I was trying to work pretty hard on that. And I just was like lost in it, kind of. I did do a lot of stuff the night before since I got back early to kind of get ready, but then I ended up spending all day like working on that stuff and that I didn't really plan. And so I was kind of stressed out that day and just in general. But I think the single got pretty good feedback from the people I was showing, and I still gonna be promoting it pretty much constantly for the next month and a half. But it was a good day one for it, and I feel like I sounded pretty good at Kilkenny's, and I was in my own little world. I had kind of a weird thing happen. There was a guy kind of out in the corner, like right outside Kilkenny's. He was jamming on the saxophone. I went and listened, and he sounded pretty good, so I went up and talked to him. It was kind of a blah night, like for as far as the crowd and stuff at Kilkenny's. And I was talking to him for a few minutes, and he seemed like he knew what was up. And wasn't a saxophone player first, but he went to school for jazz piano, so he has a really good grasp on theory stuff. So I pretty much was just like, well, what keys are good for you to, easy for you to play in? And he told me, and I picked a bunch of songs. And I don't think they all went amazing. I mean, some of them, there were a few that I was just like, I'll just capo it up a fret to make it easy on him, which, is a little tougher on me, when you're going to like a solo part and you have to remember to go up an extra fret on all your notes. Or if you're singing and it's already a tough song to sing and then you're singing up an extra half step, can be a challenge. But it was just nice. It was just something different, and he was projecting it really well. I didn't even need a microphone, and I do feel like it caught some people's attention, just because I don't think that that's something that people hear as in the 90s. Maybe they heard a guitar, kind of an acoustic guitar rock guy with a saxophone. You got Springsteen and Dave Matthews. I think even Dispatch had a horn section at one point in time. So I mean, it's definitely a more common thing back in the day. So, but I haven't seen it for a while, and that's what it felt like. It felt like kind of 90s, and I would let him do his. I would say, all right, go ahead, or do your solo, and he would kind of go off on those, and we were just improvising. It wasn't like we had any sort of plan. He knew I was in F major or B flat or E flat, because those were the easy ones for him to play in. But other than that, he was just kind of following what I was doing. And I think my singing suffered a little bit at times, but it was fun. It was just something different. I don't, when do I play with a saxophone player? Almost never. So, and then the next day was so I got home at 4:30. I was exhausted that day, and I was like looking at the travel time was saying 4 hours. I was like, that doesn't sound right. It used to be 3 hours, 3.5, I thought at the most, but 3:15, 3.5. But I was like, okay, if that's what my math says, I better trust it. And so I got up extra early, and it said the same thing. So I was like starting to get ready, and then all of a sudden it changed, and it said 3.5 hours. I was like, oh, that sounds correct. So I wasn't gonna even take a shower because I was gonna be kind of low on time. And I was like, okay, well, I can take a shower now, because I knew I probably wouldn't the next day because I had a show in the morning. And I was like, if I take a shower, before the show in Paw Paw, which Paw Paw, Michigan, is Paw Paw Brewing Company in Michigan, which I've played there a few times, but it's been a long time. I think last December was the last time I played there. And then I got on the road for about a half hour, and it changed back to 4 hours. So it was like I was going to be there at 4:15 originally for a show at 6, and it's 4:15 their time, which is an hour later than our time here. So I don't know, it can just be confusing, the travel times. It shouldn't be, but my lack of sleep and everything, it was a little more than it probably should have been. But so it said it went back to 4.5 hours to get there, and I was like, what the hell? And it said it was going to be there like 5:10 or something, which that's almost a full hour later than it had said when I left. And so I was kind of freaking out a little bit. And then I found like another hour went by, and I was kind of like, it's gonna be so stressful just getting there, plugging in, playing, and getting. And there's an alternate route, and it got me there. I think I ended up about 4:45, which isn't too bad. About maybe a half hour later than I was hoping to get there, but it was plenty of time, and I took my time to set up, use my in-ears, and it was kind of a weird situation. They put this giant table of like a birthday party that were, kind of on the older side of things, and right next to the stage, like literally right in front of my speaker. And I was like, just getting there, and I was thinking like, oh, they'll probably leave before I even start, because they were, like I said, a little bit on the older side. But as I kind of got setting up, and I realized that we're kind of staying put, and so I was just like, okay, well, mentality change. I had to have a mentality change, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna start at like almost half the volume that I normally do. And I brought I was halfway thinking I would do a light setup, but it was the Saturday night show. It was in Paw Paw, Michigan. It felt good. I was a little salty that I was like, I wanted to get there at 4 and maybe stop by the beach for just like 15 minutes, just to even just look at the water. It would have been nice to, have some sort of interaction, because it was a really nice day. It would have been a great beach day, but that obviously didn't happen because of the time thing. But really nice day, and so I was like thinking like, oh, I'll just do my light setup that I did at Kilkenny's the night before, and I got there, and I had hour 15 to set up, and I was like, oh, I'll just do the big one. I just wanted to do it, I just wanted and then I went with the half volume, and I kind of did a couple things differently for how I set stuff up. And first half hour was a little bit like, I had a lot of tension. I was a little stressed, and like I wasn't sure if it was sounding okay, and it was very quiet. And I was afraid to do, I have two boost, a gain, an overdrive, and a boost pedal. So I wasn't using those at all on time, and then I had my at the same time, and then I wasn't using my just overdriven organ setting. But I had the organ kind of right next to me, which was kind of nice, because I could kind of, sometimes I put my little amp that has the organ coming out of it really far, so, and then like, I'm like, I should go change that, and then I forget immediately that it's like, it's too loud, and then I start an 8-song medley, and then it's too loud for all 8 songs, and I can't do anything about it, and then I forget, and I start another song. That's just how it goes with anything kind of live sound wise, I think, is, I need to put more high end on my guitar. Need more volume on my vocals. And then you think that in the song, and then like once the song's over, you're talking, you're like, oh, that was this song by this band, and thank you, blah, blah. And then you just go right into the next song. You're like, I didn't do it. And you'll continually do that throughout the whole night until finally you remember once. And you're like, man, I wish I would have done that 20 minutes ago or an hour ago sometimes. Or you'll even take a break and you'll forget to do it before you come back. But anyhow, so they had this table of kind of older people right in front of me celebrating a birthday, and I was just hitting them with all the songs I thought that they would, like, because I know a lot of covers, obviously, so I kind of have a different mentality for that kind of set list, and I think I kind of did a pretty good job, because I didn't scare them away with my volume, which is a feat all in of itself. And then I was playing some originals too, but I was definitely throwing those older covers in to, the Elvis, the Beatles, the Johnny Cash's, all those songs, some more modern country songs, and they were into it. And because of that, I think the bar really appreciated A, the volume level, and B, the song selection. And I don't know, it was a fun night. I think I took one break, and just didn't really, you drive 3 hours, and then you set up for an hour, and then you're finally doing the playing part, and if you're having a good time, it's like hard for me to be like, all right, well, as soon as you're done, you have to tear everything down and then drive another 3 hours. So, which for that show is nice, because you get the hour on the way back. But yeah, it was probably the most fun of the weekend, I would say. And I don't know, the people there are super nice, and it was just it felt very, very good. And then this last Sunday, I played at Boone's in Springfield, and so I think this is what happened for me. I got home from the Paw Paw show around 1:30, I think, and so that means I left at, I think, around noon-ish, maybe noon or 1. I was in the car for 3 hours, set up for an hour, so that's 4. Play for 3 more hours, that's 7, and then tear down for an hour, that's 8, and then drive home 3 more hours, so that's 11 hours. And at that point, I don't think my mind was really working very good. I was very tired, just being in the car for that. That's 6, and it was really a 3.5-hour drive on either end. So really, it was 12 hours. But yeah, I set the show was 11 to 2 at Boone's in Springfield, and I set my alarm for 9, which I should have set it for 8 because I needed to leave. If I was gonna start by 11, that means it had to be there by 10 to set up, and then so that means I'd have to leave by 9 since it's an hour away. But I did my math wrong before I went to bed, and I should have thought about it harder. And so I woke up and realized I was gonna get there at 11 when I was supposed to start, and that, like, such a bummer. Like, I felt so bad, and I hightailed there as fast as I could. I called when I got about a half hour away to let them know I was coming, and I'd probably be able to be set up by 11:15, and ultimately I got there at like 11:05 and was ready to play at 11:15. So I mean, I was only 15 minutes late ultimately, but I hate that. It just feels unprofessional, and nobody cared, I think, at all. And there was only 2 people in the beer garden when I got there. But because I don't know if I was punishing myself or if I was just trying to make it right, I got started by 11:15, and I played for 3 hours straight, pretty much nonstop, all my medleys, and played till 2:15. So just I played a little extra at the end, which wasn't technically extra since I started late, but straight through, no breaks. And it's kind of a weird setup I decided to do. I mean, a lot of it was just the time issue. No monitors, and I stuck my vocal and guitar direct into my JBL stack thing, PA system, and yeah, it sounded fine. I was like worried about it a little bit because I was like, not gonna have all my toys, I'm not gonna have my pedal board, and I'm not gonna be able to do my solos as long, and my voice is right. You get all these things in your head, and then it was fine. I could play like that. I feel like when I was doing it, I was like thinking, like, I could literally do this at every show, and I don't know that people would care or notice that it's different than what I normally do. But there's so many layers. I can play just acoustic. I can play just acoustic one-man band. I can play like I did on this Saturday, just acoustic one-man band, but everything plugged in, at least just direct in. So even the kick drum mic'd, and guitar direct in, vocal direct in. I can do through my pedal board, so then I got a lot more effects and boost for the guitar and stuff. And then I can do my elaborate, where I have my organ pedal also, and my extra pedal board for some boost, and then I can do like extra speakers on top of my JBL. So there's so many different levels, and all of those I think take a little bit of a different skill set, and just you got to kind of get used to doing them that way, and then using the in-ears, not using it. There's so many X factors that it can just be kind of exhausting, and you don't get any sort of like routine because you never know what the show's going to be. I mean, sometimes you do because you've played there before, but I mean, all venues and bars and everywhere I play are not created equally, as far as like what I need to make it work, and with the different price ranges and stuff like that, like all that stuff's a factor. So it's like I never really get used to playing one specific way, and sometimes I make the wrong choice where I shouldn't be this loud, or I shouldn't have brought so many extra toys to play with because my mind's not functioning quite right, or I shouldn't use my in-ears. I don't need them. It's too quiet inside anyway. And there's so many little things like that I'm just winging it. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I probably have a better idea than somebody else that hasn't been playing hundreds of shows a year for a long time, but I'm not a professional sound guy. I'm just rolling with the punches, figuring it out as I go, and 75% of the time it works great, but you do have that 25 variance of where it's just kind of a shit show. So, but, I just keep showing up. I think that's all I can really do, and just trying as hard as I can. There's just so many things to think about, and it can be so overwhelming, especially this month, even just doing this podcast, which now is at about an hour long, because I've procrastinated so long. I've been sick. I've had so many shows. The last podcast I did was with Wolf, and I didn't talk about any of this stuff. Last thing before I'm done, my new single Digital Soul is out currently. You can stream that anywhere you stream music, and I'm really excited about how it turned out, and I'm pretty happy with a lot of the feedback I've gotten from most people. I'm kind of surprised. It's not like a pop song. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I knew that kind of going into it. It was a little bit scary for me in some senses, because it's like because I know it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It's a weird one that, it's kind of scary to put it out there for people to hear it, so that they can kind of judge it and maybe not be a fan, But that I don't know if people are just being nice or what, but that has not been the case as far as the people I've shown. And with that, and Will Magic Find Me was this terrifying song to put out too, because it's so raw. It's just me and an acoustic guitar, nothing to hide behind really at all. Usually I have the big band arrangements, and I didn't even usually I use a ton of reverb and delay, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want it to sound kind of more how I naturally sound. And that's been definitely my mentality kind of going forward, is trying to make it sound more like me, instead of these over processed vocals that I had and all of that is self-doubt. And trust. You're trusting an engineer to do their thing, and they know what they're doing, but when you first start recording, you don't really have, you don't know what your ideal sound is. You don't know what you're even trying to sound like in any regard. Acoustic guitar, vocals, what should the drum cymbal sound like? It's like so many little tiny things, so intricate. But as the years gone by, I feel like I've got a better understanding of my ideal. And part of the thing when you go in and you record with somebody is your ideals are fighting their ideals. You don't want it to be a fight, but you want to be able to express what you're shooting for in a simple way, and sometimes it's very difficult. So I think I'm getting better at that, and just better at knowing what I'm striving to sound like. And I think I really want to get those two songs out, even though it was a little scary, because it's definitely a way to kind of differentiate what I'm doing now to what I was doing back then. And I think that's a good thing. I did mention earlier, Wings is a little bit of a departure from that, in that it does have a little bit of that older TUA vibe to it, but it still, doesn't really sound the same, because I wrote and played all the parts to everything. So, I guess Eric made the drums a little bit more elaborate and better sounding, and he ended up played the bass part that I wrote and maybe added a few additions and stuff. But for the most part, it's all the electric guitar, all the piano, all the guitar, all the synth, a lot of that stuff is just me, So I think, that being said, it's not really as much of a collaboration. It's more just what's in my brain. So it's just like a different vibe. But yeah, go listen to Digital Soul. Give me some like, share, follow if you feel so inclined. Obviously, all that stuff helps tremendously in this first week of it being out. I'm pretty excited. Digital Soul, I decided to, because the kind of theme of the song, at least from what I can gather, because when I wrote it, I was pretty faded. So not, don't really remember the thought process behind it. I do know that because of that, it came out a lot different than a lot of my other songs, and I really leaned into that for a lot of the music. The music was just not like something I would normally write. Like there's a part at the end where it like has a key change, which I don't really generally do that, and it has like this kind of chromatic walk down, which is not something I normally do in my chord progressions, but it just fit the song. And so I've been excited, and there are a couple live versions of that song out. You can hear kind of the raw acoustic version on the Pandemic Relief album, or you can hear the one-man band version on the Live in State and Water. And but now you got this completely different, like, big full studio production, which I need to give a shout out to Jeff Easton for spending all the time with me. He did all the drums on it, a lot of the synths, most of the guitar work is him. I mean, some of the stuff I had ideas for what to play, but I mean, he performed them and he made them better and elaborated on all the parts and wrote his own parts. The second part in that intro that has kind of that off-key note, he was playing something, and I ended up and just pushed, because he has a floating bridge, or a tremolo bridge, not a floating bridge, and so like I pushed on his bridge, so it kind of made it go out of tune, which I think was kind of a cool addition. But anyway, what I was getting to is the overall theme of Digital Soul is, like, from what I can gather, is kind of my thoughts on the current, like, dystopian virtual kind of digital world we're living in. It's we're headed in a weird road on that front, and I grew up in the 90s and early thousands, and I barely got a cell phone when I was in high school. I was just starting texting maybe my junior or senior year, so the smartphones and all this digital stuff is all pretty new to me, and I've kind of been able to watch it develop, and it's been pretty wild. The pandemic and that all kind of putting everybody even more kind of into their digital world. But now with AI has been kind of a crazy. But what I was trying to say is, the artwork was an AI generated photo that I described the song and they came up with. There was a bunch of options, but that was the one that me and some of the, Lo and Ryan Wolf and my brother Ryan and Jeff had all liked that specific one. They all had like their picks, and I like that one, the one that it came out. And I've used that for a couple promo videos I've made. Because I got this app where you can use AI to turn that photo into like a little music video, and then I did some extra editing. I guess the theme of what I'm trying to say is, since the song's about living in this kind of digital dystopian reality that we're in, what is real at this point? Like, one of the main lines is, I can't say what it is I know if all I know is only digital. I think that's how the song starts, and it comes back to that kind of in the outro part. And so, like, the idea is I'm going to use AI to do a lot of the things, just because that kind of lines up with that line of thinking of, like, how crazy everything's getting on that front. And even with the production, I mean, I think that's part of the reason I was a little, it was already kind of a weird song, but I really wanted to lean into the digital part. So the whole second half has like these crazy synths and digital drums. And but anyway, so I got to give a shout out to Jeff for helping me with that. He definitely brought it to a whole different level. And Doug Cook played bass on it. He's featured as the bass player. So when you see Dirk Berg in parentheses on the song title, that's what that's referring to. And I think having him play, I kind of had the main bass line and for the verses, and kind of the general idea for the chorus and the outro, but just having an actual bass player play it and kind of add their own kind of style to it. I mean, it wouldn't have been as nearly as elaborate if I would have been playing it, or if it was just the part I had written. So it was really cool to bring him in and kind of get his take on that. And yeah, I've just been really pleased with it. So be on the lookout for that. Go give that a couple streams. And I think that's it. I think we're up to date. Hopefully the next one, my voice will sound even more halfway normal, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, as always, I appreciate anybody who takes the time to listen, and I'll talk to you next time. All right, have a good one. Bye.